I think it's fair to say it's the world's newest intergovernmental body. However, the organization was launched a couple of years ago in 2010, initially as a not-for-profit foundation chartered in Korea. But since then, it has begun operations in quite a number of countries around the world and built its initial research and other programs while conducting diplomatic discussions with what ultimately turned out to be 18 initial member states in this new intergovernmental institution.
Okay, to what end? Why the intergovernmental organization? Why the need for an intergovernmental organization?
We are an interdisciplinary organization and a multi-stakeholder organization. And our primary mission is to assist countries that have a high ambition level in terms of integrating environmental and natural resource considerations into the core of their economic strategies. And we do so by providing them advanced analytical capabilities, capacity building, and implementation assistance as well, helping them to structure smart financial and political strategies that can help mobilize the necessary funds to help the country effectively transform its economic development strategy into a win-win between growth on the one hand and strong environmental performance on the other. In terms of your question as to why should we take this non-governmental institution and transform it into a formal intergovernmental body, the answer to that is that the founders of the organization thought that that would be the right structure because it would lend a degree of international legitimacy to its work and would also make sure that the organization is a very trusted partner, neutral, independent party for those developing and emerging country governments that we serve. That is to say that since we're not chartered in any one country, we're not likely, therefore, to transmit the particular historical or cultural preferences or biases of that particular country. And in so doing, we can really provide the best advice we can muster and provide sustained support in a very disinterested and independent fashion.
And we're talking mostly about, or exclusively about, emerging economies here across the globe, across continents?
Our core activity, representing about 2/3 of the programs of the organization, is in supporting developing and emerging country governments that want to develop a green growth plan. That is to say, a growth plan that delivers a high degree of employment, income growth, and just sheer GDP per capita growth, but at the same time, strong environmental and resource security outcomes as well. And we do so by providing that technical assistance, whether it be expertise from the academic community or other governments or the private sector even, and then we help with the implementation of those plans, as I was saying before. Now, so that core part of the work really is directly supporting developing and emerging country governments. However, we are a global institute, and we have two other main areas of activity. Research on the one hand and public-private cooperation on the other. And both of those segments, which represents 30 to 40% of the activity of the organization, are global in scope.
And here in COP18 in Doha, I mean, how do you fit into the global climate change debate? I mean, are you not doing some of the things that organizations, institutions within the COP family are already doing?
We fit in a very complementary way to the negotiations that are going on here. We like to think of ourselves essentially as a piece of the bottom-up economic enabling infrastructure that's out there for countries that have decided they want to have a high level of ambition of achieving both growth and strong environmental performance. And the world in the last 10 or so years has been focused mainly on what you might think of the top-down architecture of legal and political commitments. These are very important. The UN negotiations are extremely important to set global goals and to set national commitments in the context of a global strategy. But the reality is that just setting a goal and making a national political commitment are not the same thing as actually reducing carbon or improving water security, let alone transforming development itself into better and more inclusive outcomes for people. That's the stuff of economic policy and public-private cooperation and private sector innovation and the like. So the world needs a complementary enabling set of mechanisms and frameworks and indeed sometimes institutions to work on the daily work of transforming our economy. And that's what we're focused on. And so in that respect, I think there's a mutually beneficial relationship between the political process that the UNFCCC represents the apex of, on the one hand, and the work that a lot of NGOs and organizations like ours are doing more on the ground.
Right. I mean, have you noticed a sense of kind of frustration here? This is the sheer size of COP18, the sheer size of the growth, the constant growth of the whole COP process, really not enabling international organizations to get down and do the kind of work that you're doing. I mean, simply by being smaller, more efficient, can you do what perhaps, the world is trying to do, but perhaps failing since, that they are so involved in negotiations?
Well, as I say, there's a need for different types of international cooperation. Having a diplomatic process to try to set a superstructure, if you will, of strategy and goals, which is what the UN process is about, I think is very, very important. And I think we should not underestimate the need for that, even though it's a very frustrating and time-consuming process. But my main recommendation has been for the last few years is that the international community needs to walk and chew gum at the same time. It needs to also work on these economic institutions, work with the private sector, work with coalitions of capable partners to tackle some of the big areas of opportunity for progress. And that means we need to move beyond the environment ministries and the foreign ministries, who are mainly represented at a negotiation like this. We need to get the finance and economic planning ministries and commerce ministries into the game. And we need to do so in a way that seamlessly integrates the economic as well as the environmental objectives of a given government, whether it be at the national level, provincial level, or municipal level, and that understands that for this change to happen, for this UN process ultimately to succeed in achieving the goal of mitigating the rise in atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases, what's going to be needed is a transformation of the very model of economic development that the world has known for the last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution. And that is a very serious undertaking that requires a different set of actors, and it requires intellectual leadership, it requires engaging private finance and technology and innovation deeply into the plans of countries and other actors. And we need to get to work on that in a very robust fashion. We are an intergovernmental institution that's been created very, very specifically to help accelerate that process, not for everybody, but for governments that have made a serious high-level political commitment to move in that direction. We believe that if we can help 10, 20 such governments over the next 3 or 4 years convince themselves and develop a body of evidence that it is possible to achieve high growth, high employment, high income gains, broadly dispersed throughout the population on the one hand, and to have a strong contribution to the mitigation of carbon and improvement of the quality and security of water and protection of biodiversity and forests and the like, then those examples will have a ripple effect across the world economy, and that we will move beyond potentially what has been an unfortunately polarized discussion, often between developed and developing countries, into a domain where people see that it's actually in their enlightened self-interest to move down this path of a new model of economic growth.